Marcus had been alone for so long that the fear of connection felt like a constant companion, a weight pressing against his chest that made even breathing feel like a negotiation with his own doubt. He sat in the corner booth of Riverside Cafe, his hands wrapped around a cooling cup of coffee, watching the minute hand on the wall clock mock his vulnerability. 6:45. She was 15 minutes late. He told himself this was a sign that the universe was finally confirming what he'd always believed, that he wasn't meant to share his life with anyone. He was rehearsing the exact words he'd used to text his sister that the blind date had been a disaster when the small voice cut through his spiral of self-pity, like light through darkness. "Excuse me, mister? Are you waiting for my mommy?" Marcus's eyes lifted from his phone to find a little girl, no more than 6 years old, standing beside his table in a yellow sundress that had seen better days. Her dark hair was tangled, barely contained by a pink ribbon, and her brown eyes held a clarity that seemed far too old for her small face. She was alone. Completely and utterly alone in a busy cafe full of strangers. Every instinct in Marcus's body seized. He looked around, expecting a frantic parent to come rushing through the door. But the cafe remained calm, indifferent. His heart rate quickened as he leaned forward slightly. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "I'm Lily," she said, climbing uninvited onto the bench across from him. "My mommy said to find the man in the red shirt with the sad eyes." She said his eyes were sadder than hers, and that she wanted to make him smile. Lily's words tumbled out with the innocent conviction that only children possess, and suddenly Marcus wasn't sure if he was experiencing a beautiful moment or a parent's catastrophic failure. "Where is your mom, Lily?" His voice had shifted entirely. The self-absorbed man checking, his watch had transformed into something protective and alert. "She's coming. She said she had to do something very important first, but she's sorry she's late. She told me to tell you that she's sorry." Lily swung her small legs back and forth, her bare feet dangling above the cafe floor. "And she said I should tell you that sometimes the people who are late because they're busy becoming the people they need to be for themselves and the people they love." Lily paused, her forehead crinkling slightly. "I don't really know what that means. But mommy cries a lot, so I just do what she says." Something shifted in Marcus's chest. The carefully constructed walls he'd built around his own. Pain, walls he'd reinforced, with years of disappointment and self-protection, suddenly felt flimsy and unnecessary. Here was this child, motherless in a public space, delivering messages about growth and change with the certainty of someone who'd learned these lessons by necessity rather than choice. He found himself studying her more carefully, noting the slight tremor in her hands, the way she glanced toward the door every few seconds with a hope that was heartbreaking in its purity. "Would you like some hot chocolate?" Marcus heard himself ask. Lily's entire face transformed. "Really? Mommy usually says we have to save money, but today she gave me $5 for our adventure. I've only spent $3. She held up 2 crumpled bills and some coins, with the reverence of someone displaying treasure. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus found himself engaged in the kind of conversation he'd forgotten existed, the kind without pretense or agenda, where a 6-year-old asked him questions about clouds and whether fish got bored in tanks, and he found himself laughing genuinely for the first time in months. Lily talked about her school, about the art class she loved, about how her mommy worked 2 jobs but always made time to read her stories before bed. She spoke of her mother with such profound love and respect that Marcus felt ashamed of the resentment he'd harbored toward a woman he'd never met. At 7:30, the cafe door swung open. A woman with Lily's same dark eyes stood in the threshold, breathing as if she'd run miles. She was wearing the uniform of a hospital aide, and her face bore the unmistakable marks of someone carrying too much weight on shoulders that had learned not to complain. When she saw Lily, her entire body seemed to release tension she hadn't even known she was holding. She walked directly to their table, and for a moment, her eyes met Marcus's with an expression that contained apology, shame, and an almost defiant pride all at once. "I'm Sarah," she said simply. "I'm so sorry. I was working a shift at the hospital, and there was an emergency with one of my patients, an elderly woman who'd fallen. I couldn't just leave her. I couldn't. Her voice carried the weight of 1,000 impossible choices. My sister was supposed to watch Lily, but her car broke down. I did everything I could to rearrange, but in the end, I called the cafe and asked if I could send Lily in to find you. I trusted this because the owner here, Mrs. Chen, she knows us. She knows I'm not a lunatic? A trembling smile crossed her face. I told Lily exactly what to say because I wanted you to know that I'm not someone who treats people casually. If I'm going to ask someone to be in my life, it's because I believe they deserve better than excuses. Marcus looked at Sarah, really looked at her, and then at Lily, who was watching both of them with a hopeful expression, of someone who believed in the basic goodness of people. He thought about loneliness and fear, about the walls he'd constructed, about how a 6-year-old had managed to breach his defenses with nothing but honesty and hot chocolate. I want to know both of you, he said finally, and he meant it with a clarity that had been missing from his life for so long he'd almost forgotten it was possible. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Just like that? Not just like that, Marcus said, looking at Lily. I'm going to say yes because your daughter reminded me tonight that kindness matters more than perfection, and that people who struggle to show up are often the ones working hardest to be good. I'm going to say yes because I'm tired of being alone, and because you trusted me with something precious when you had every reason not to. Lily reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. Does this mean Mommy doesn't have to be scared anymore? Marcus squeezed gently. Your mom was brave, not scared. There's a difference. As Mrs. Chen brought out complimentary desserts, and the three of them sat together. In the warmth of the cafe, Marcus realized that the greatest risk isn't showing up on time, it's showing up at all. Exactly as you are, with nothing to offer but your honest self and the hope that it might be enough. Sarah had given him that gift tonight, wrapped in a yellow sundress and delivered by a child with eyes that saw right through his defenses to the person he could become. Sometimes love doesn't arrive according to schedule. Sometimes it arrives exactly when it's supposed to, exactly when both people have finally learned to be ready for it.